I need to tell you about a real sourced report that most people out there completely forgot about, and I genuinely think that's a mistake because it directly involves your own team and one of the single greatest scorers this entire league has ever produced. Last July, when the Milwaukee Bucks made the truly stunning decision to waive Damian Lillard entirely and stretch the remaining $113 million still owed on his contract, all just to clear enough cap room to sign free agent center Miles Turner, Lillard instantly became, by a wide margin, the single most fascinating free agent this entire league had seen in years. And here's what I genuinely need you to hear clearly, because this wasn't buried inside a single random tweet. It was reported directly and independently by ESPN's own respected insider, Mark J. Spears. The Golden State Warriors had expressed real, genuine interest in signing Lillard. Separately, in a completely different report, the Athletic's own trio of Eric Nehm, Sam Amick, and Joe Varden independently confirmed the Warriors were, quote, known to be among the many teams that would have interest in doing a deal sooner rather than later. Two completely separate, credible national reporters working two entirely separate sourcing pipelines. Same exact team named both times. Same exact name involved both times. The Golden State Warriors actively, genuinely circling Damian Lillard. Now, I always give you the complete picture on this channel, so let me tell you honestly and exactly how that particular story actually ended. Lillard ultimately chose to go home. He signed a genuine 3-year, $42 million contract to return to the Portland Trail Blazers, the exact franchise where he built his entire lasting legacy across 11 full seasons, and he spent the following season, 2025-26, entirely on the sideline, rehabilitating a serious torn Achilles rather than playing in a single actual game. That specific chapter of the story is closed, and I am absolutely not going to pretend otherwise. But here's exactly why I'm bringing this back up tonight, and why I genuinely think it matters more for the Warriors specifically than it does for almost any other single team in this entire league. Let me remind you exactly who Damian Lillard is, because his recent absence from actual game action has clouded just how genuinely significant this entire resume actually is. 7-time NBA All-Star, 7-time All-NBA selection across a career spanning well over a decade at the highest level of this sport, a member of the league's official 75th anniversary team, an honor reserved for only the greatest 75 players in the entire history of professional basketball, the 7th player in NBA history to ever score more than 70 points in a single game, 17 career 50-point outings across both the regular season and the playoffs combined, a genuine Olympic gold medalist, one of the single most feared clutch shot makers this sport has ever produced, a player whose signature game-winning shots have their own dedicated nickname among fans nationwide. This is a first-ballot Hall of Famer, full stop, and the only thing genuinely missing from that otherwise complete resume is a championship ring. Here's the specific detail that genuinely keeps this whole conversation alive and worth having. Lillard's current contract with Portland includes a real player option ahead of the 2027-28 season, meaning roughly a full year from right now, he'll have an actual contractual decision point where he can genuinely choose to opt out and become a free agent all over again, right at the exact moment this entire league finally definitively knows what his surgically repaired Achilles genuinely has left to give on an NBA court. If Lillard's overall recovery genuinely goes well in Portland over the course of this coming season, and if the Trail Blazers still find themselves nowhere close to real championship contention when his opt-out clause finally arrives next summer, the same exact question that already produced two separate sourced reports last summer is going to resurface almost immediately, and this time Golden State's own championship clock will be ticking even louder than it already is right now. Now let's talk about why this fits the Warriors so specifically, because the timing here is almost eerie when you actually lay it all out. Golden State is genuinely in the final stretch of one of the greatest dynasties this league has ever seen, and Stephen Curry, at 38 years old, is running out of competitive runway faster than anyone inside that building wants to openly admit. Golden State missed the playoffs entirely last season. The front office spent this entire offseason searching for exactly one more real difference maker to extend this era even further, chasing names across the league while Curry's own championship window keeps quietly, steadily shrinking with every single month that passes. Damian Lillard is, without any real exaggeration whatsoever, one of the only players in the entire history of this sport who can genuinely walk onto a basketball court and match Stephen Curry's own gravitational pull from 30 feet out with any real consistency. Think carefully about what that specifically means for a Warriors offense that has spent an entire decade built around the constant threat of Curry's shooting range, forcing defenses into impossible, no-win choices. Now imagine a second, similarly terrifying shooter occupying the exact same roster, someone who has built an entire career out of pulling up from ludicrous range with a hand directly in his face and simply burying it anyway, night after night. Defenses that already have to account for Curry at half court would suddenly have absolutely no answer left at all if Lillard were standing in the opposite corner at the same time. Let me also address the relationship angle here, because it's a real, well-documented piece of this story that deserves its own attention. Lillard grew up in Oakland, the exact city the Warriors called home for decades before their eventual move across the bay to San Francisco, and he has spoken publicly at real length and on multiple occasions about what that specific region genuinely means to him, about the culture and community that shaped him long before he ever became a bona fide NBA star. A reunion with a franchise so directly tied to his actual hometown roots carries a kind of real emotional and symbolic weight that a purely transactional, spreadsheet-driven free agency decision almost never has. And front offices around this entire league understand that emotional fit matters just as much as financial fit when a proven veteran player is deciding where to spend potentially his final competitive seasons on this earth. Let me also walk you through exactly how rare it genuinely is for two separate independently reporting national insiders to name the exact same team in the exact same free agency situation, because that's not some coincidence you can simply wave away as noise. When ESPN's Mark J. Spears and The Athletic's entire trio of Name, Amick, and Varden both independently landed on Golden State, each working their own separate sources across a fractured, intensely competitive media landscape that genuinely tells you the interest was real enough to reach multiple different pipelines into league front offices at essentially the exact same time. Reporters don't coordinate their scoops with each other. When they independently land in the exact same place anyway, it usually means the underlying story was significant enough that word had already spread widely around this entire league. Let me also address what a Lillard-Curry backcourt would actually look like schematically, because the fit goes beyond just two great shooters existing on the same roster. Steve Kerr's entire offensive system is built around constant, relentless off-ball movement designed to spring open a shooter for even a fraction of a second. Lillard, even at this stage of his career, remains one of the most gifted off-the-dribble shot creators in basketball, someone who doesn't need a system to get his own shot, but who thrives even further inside one that's already generating extra space. Pairing him with Curry doesn't just add a second shooter, it adds a second legitimate shot creator who can run offense in the exact minutes Curry needs to rest, something this roster has genuinely lacked in recent seasons whenever Curry sits. Let me also touch on the mentorship dimension here, because it genuinely matters for a locker room currently in transition. Golden State's roster includes a real mix of veteran championship pieces alongside younger players still actively finding their own identity within this league. A player with Lillard's specific, well-earned reputation for professionalism, for treating every single practice like a genuine playoff game, for carrying himself with a level of preparation that teammates across multiple franchises have repeatedly, publicly praised throughout his entire career, brings exactly the kind of standard-setting presence a locker room genuinely benefits from during a pivotal transitional stretch, entirely independent of whatever he still has physically left to offer. On the actual court, let me be completely honest about the doubts here, because that's the only way I do business on this channel. The first and most significant doubt is that Lillard holds a true full no-trade clause written into his current contract, one of only two players in this entire league with that exact protection, the other being LeBron James himself. Any realistic path to Golden State has to run entirely through Lillard's own free choice in free agency, not a trade, and it has to overcome his repeatedly publicly stated desire to finish out his career close to his own family in Portland. The second doubt is the Achilles recovery itself, since the historical precedent for players genuinely regaining all-star level burst after that specific injury at his current age remains genuinely limited across NBA history. The third doubt is Golden State's own financial situation, since the roster already sits deep into luxury tax territory, and absorbing even a modest new contract requires real creativity from a front office that has spent years navigating some of the most restrictive apron rules anywhere in this league. Those are real, genuinely serious obstacles standing in the way here, and I am not going to pretend otherwise just to make this story sound more exciting than it actually is. But here's what I want you to sit with anyway. A full year is a genuinely long time in professional sports. Contracts get reevaluated constantly. Priorities shift dramatically once a player actually sees with his own eyes exactly what his body can still do on an NBA court after major reconstructive surgery. And when a player with a genuine, real opt-out clause has already been independently confirmed, by name, by multiple reporters, as a target of your own franchise once before, that history doesn't just quietly disappear into nothing. It sits there, waiting patiently as a real, tangible data point for exactly what could realistically happen again if circumstances shift even slightly in the coming months. Let me also touch on something that rarely gets discussed directly. The legacy calculation every aging superstar eventually has to make for himself, honestly and privately. Lillard has one glaring hole in an otherwise complete resume, and he's watched contemporaries and rivals win rings while his own championship window kept closing. He has openly, repeatedly discussed wanting to be remembered for exactly who he genuinely was as a competitor, not simply for his career point totals or his win-loss record over the years. A player carrying that exact mindset, once he's genuinely proven to himself that his body has truly recovered, becomes exactly the kind of free agent who prioritizes a real, legitimate shot at a championship over comfort and familiar routine, especially when that shot comes wrapped inside a genuine return to the community that raised him from childhood. Let me also walk through the actual financial mechanics of how a deal like this could realistically work, because the numbers genuinely matter here. A player entering his late 30s coming off a major career-threatening injury is simply not walking into another Supermax level contract, no matter how impressively he ends up playing once he returns. Realistically, we're talking about a taxpayer or non-taxpayer mid-level contract, exactly the kind of modest, genuinely value-based deal that a title-hungry front office can find real room for even while operating close to the luxury tax line, especially once other veteran contracts naturally come off the books by the following summer. So here's what I genuinely need from you. Watch closely how Lillard actually looks once Portland's preseason begins this coming fall. Watch the first step attacking a defender, watch the shot mechanics, watch specifically whether Dame Time still genuinely looks like Dame Time out there on the floor. Because if that tape is even remotely close to encouraging, the exact conversation that already produced two separate credible national reports naming the Warriors is going to come roaring right back, and Golden State's front office will have an entire extra year of accumulated urgency behind the decision to finally make it happen for real this time. Let me leave you with one final thought here, because it's genuinely the part almost nobody discussing this situation is fully connecting yet. Championship windows in this league close quietly, without an announcement, without a press conference marking the exact moment. They just slowly, gradually shut, one disappointing playoff exit at a time, until suddenly a front office looks up and realizes the door isn't just closing, it's already shut. Golden State has maybe one, perhaps two real seasons left to build one more genuine title run around Stephen Curry before the calendar makes that conversation moot entirely. A proven, championship-hungry veteran who already had this exact franchise on his own shortlist once, who has a real, documented connection to the Bay Area dating back to his childhood, represents exactly the kind of low-risk, potentially enormous reward swing a front office in Golden State's specific position should be actively preparing to make the moment the door reopens. Tell me down below, honestly and truly. If Lillard opts out next summer and genuinely re-enters the open market, do the Warriors make a real serious run at finally bringing him home to the Bay Area for good? Does Mike Dunleavy pick up that exact same phone that already rang once before, this time with real urgency behind the call? Because somewhere in San Francisco right now, a front office chasing one final championship chapter alongside Stephen Curry is quietly, privately aware that the one player who could give him the second most dangerous jump shot in the entire history of this sport already had them on his personal shortlist once, and circumstances can change faster than anyone expects in this league. I'll be watching every single preseason report out of Portland once training camp finally opens. You can count on that completely, and the moment there's real meaningful news on how Lillard actually looks, you already know I'm coming right back here to break it down for you, piece by piece, exactly like I did tonight. Stay close, Dub Nation. Sometimes the best moves of a dynasty's final act are the ones that already almost happened once before, quietly waiting for the right moment to finally come back around.